The 29th.
29th. Okay, so I think we're live. Why don't you check my Twitter feed there, Mike? If you
let me see here. Let's see here.
Oh yeah, it works. Okay. So hopefully we get some viewers actually, and maybe they'll have some questions as well. Okay, looks like we got somebody already asking questions. Okay, so we're live. We're here with Fred Pye and Mike in Space. Welcome to the Magic Internet Money Podcast / late night Sunday stream / Mike's podcast.
Yeah. Great Minds podcast.
So we had a lot of questions, mostly basic questions, but also some sort of like questions about why, why does the fund move around and stuff. But basically, this was kind of a random thing. Mike and Fred were like, "Hey, we're gonna do a chat," and I was like, "Can I join?" so the three of us are talking about the 3IQ Bitcoin fund.
People have been asking a lot of questions, and Mike was approaching us and asking. And I've been following Mike for a long time, and obviously, you two, Brad, as good friends. And I just said, let's we don't do our customer service on Twitter, but I figured, let's just explain really how a closed-end fund works, what people should be looking for, and what they should expect from the fund in the future, right? Because for all the work that we did, it's unbelievable what we created and the battle we went through, and now we've just got to make it the best thing ever, and that's going to take some work. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to take some work. But we're really excited.
Brad, before we get any further in, do we want to make any disclosures? Personally, I'm a QBTC holder, so I just wanted to disclose that.
Nice. Yeah, and I need to disclose, I've talked about it on Twitter before, I'm invested in the 3IQ company. So I'm a shareholder in 3IQ, and I hold the QBTC in my personal tax-free savings account. And I don't like Ethereum very much. So I was frustrated when I heard that there's going to be an Ethereum fund, and everybody knows that. But those are my disclosures. I got excited about 3IQ because I wanted to have the ability to get price exposure, because all the Americans were getting it with GBTC.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great differences between us and GBTC, which hopefully we'll address those and get through those tonight, because we've really, as I said, we worked really hard to get to this, to get to this position where we are. And in full disclosure, I do own QBTC. I am the president and CEO of 3IQ. But more importantly, I can't talk about the Ether fund, because if you want information, you have to contact your financial advisor and get a copy of the prospectus, because we're in a quiet period till we launch, which should be about 2 weeks.
So the first question is from this guy, Aleph Bet Yod. I don't know do you know who that person is, Mike?
No.
Yeah, well, he was asking about the Ether fund, and thankfully we're not going to be able to talk about it because I don't really want to. Oh, we can chat a little bit. Oh, it's Rocket Fuel. Okay, he's a popular Twitter and Telegram.
Yeah, Telegram mainly. I don't know. Is he on Twitter? Yeah, I guess I didn't recognize the username on Twitter.
So how do we get started? Like, what did you want to talk about, Mike?
I've got copious notes here, so if you wouldn't mind, let me just go through a few of these, and then we can open it up to like a more general discussion. So let's start off. Fred, how did you get into Bitcoin?
I got into Bitcoin kind of like 2014, 2015. I was managing. I was, with Jean-Luc Landry at Landry Investment Management. We had a multi-asset momentum portfolio, and really simple fund. But out of investment advisors deal with 16 asset classes, and we said we just want to own the best 7 all the time. So we So we set it up that way, and it was doing really well. But all the asset classes are all correlated. Everything moves together. So I've always been on this quest to find that magical non-correlated asset class. And when I started to discover Bitcoin, I went, wow, this is exactly, I'd like to put Bitcoin inside that portfolio. But there was no way for us to physically actually be able to do it. So that's when I went on the quest to try and list the first Bitcoin fund in Canada. Having said that, I go way back before most of you guys were born. I actually listed gold, silver, and platinum on the Montreal Stock Exchange back in 1983 to 1986. So we've been here before. We did that. When we launched, when we were trying to list gold on the Montreal Stock Exchange, they said, list gold? Are you kidding? He said, it's got non-traditional custodians, it's volatile, it's speculative, and it's used for drug purposes. Why would we ever list gold? So fast forward 40 years later, gold's one of the biggest trading ETFs in the United States. And I just said, wow, this is going to bode very well for Bitcoin. So we got really excited about setting this up.
That's good. So for the longest time, I've been looking for a product like QBTC that would give me, like you mentioned, exposure to Bitcoin, but within like a tax-free vehicle like a TFSA. For non-Canadians, that's a tax-free savings account where you don't have to pay capital gains on the profits, right? I do have some Bitcoin from the 2013, 2014 era, and so my cost basis at this point is practically zero. I mean, and I kind of dread selling because of the tax burden at this point. So, I mean, I've been looking for something like QBTC for a long time. I looked into Grayscale, but when I was looking into it, it looked like you need to either be accredited or it was just ineligible for a TFSA account. And then when I saw QBTC, you know, right away, I think May 2020 is when I invested, put some money in there. But so the thing that I kind of struggle with a bit, and you've heard this probably over and over, is I don't quite understand the Nav Premium. That's the premium above the net asset value on QBTC, and how that can sometimes lead to like a divergence between the prices of Bitcoin and QBTC. Like you'll see one day Bitcoin will be like, you know, dropping and QBTC will be like spiking up, or the reverse. And it's like QBTC to this point, like I've seen it vary, the NAV premium vary from like 2% to 30% within the span of a few weeks. And it seems like almost more volatile than Bitcoin at a certain sort of. So it's like, I want exposure to Bitcoin, but I don't know if I want exposure to this NAV premium. So maybe you can explain a bit more about how that works.
Yeah, so let me explain exactly how it works. You know, and again, we get people writing us and people saying, well, you know, how much Bitcoin's in your Bitcoin fund? Well, it's 100% Bitcoin. So every dollar is invested in physical Bitcoin that is custodied at Gemini. And if Bitcoin goes up 1% for the day, our fund goes up 1% for the day. Now, the stock market, people may say, oh my God, Bitcoin's on a run, and they're going to run my stock up 30%, right? And so then it trades at a 30% premium. So we don't want our fund trading at a 30% premium, because why would anybody pay $19,500 for Bitcoin, which is 30% above the $15,000 Bitcoin was at, right, when it traded at a 30% premium? That does not achieve the objective of me getting Bitcoin in everybody's RSP and TFSA and in every mutual fund in this country and every mutual fund around the world that we fought so hard to get. So what happens is when it trades at this big premium, we get a phone call from all the dealers going, I've got 10 mutual funds that want $100 million. I got 5 mutual funds that want $50 million. And they all come in, and so you do what's called an overnight offering. And we offer those shares at net asset value plus the expenses of the fund. So normally those transactions should not be dilutive. But Bitcoin trades 24 hours a day, and we don't know how much money is coming into the fund and how fast I can buy $100 million of Bitcoin, but it proves to be a bit of a challenge, and sometimes it's slightly dilutive. But when people think dilution does not mean the premium going from 35 to 7. Okay, dilution means that there's the actual exposure to Bitcoin gets reduced, and it doesn't. This owns 100% Bitcoin, and the performance is exactly the same as Bitcoin, less the expenses to the fund. And to give you an example, last quarter, the net asset value was up 33.95%, and Bitcoin's return was 35.26%. So it was actually for 3 months, it was about one and a little bit less than the performance of Bitcoin. So the net asset value tracks Bitcoin daily, almost identically. But then, as you're right, the premium had a low of 8% and a high of 32%. So
well, in May, I think I got in around 2%. Yeah, but I've seen it recently as high as 30%. It's like, you know what? I don't mind a premium if it was consistent. Like if it's a 30% premium and it's always kind of hovering around 30%, I still have that Bitcoin exposure. But if it's going from 2% to 30%, that's a pretty wide right there.
Yeah. So our objective is to have this trade as close to the real price of Bitcoin all the time. So right. It's no different than you opening up a wallet and trading Bitcoin on CoinSquare, or you doing, you buying our fund. Except ours, you can put it in your RSP and your TFSA. Now, right. Mike, I'd agree with you. The average Canadian should be willing to pay a 2 or a 3% premium to put it in his TFSA or his RSP, but not a 30% premium. So until all the market dynamics of liquidity, of volume, of access, until all of these issues get cleaned out, this fund has to get bigger. It has to get much bigger. It has to be very liquid. We used to trade, if we take a look at the end of September, we were trading about 68,000 shares a day. We're now doing 400,000 or 500,000 shares a day. So now it's more available. It's more liquid. We can keep track of the premium better.
Right.
But when people on Twitter were telling us, oh, I'm going to sell QBTC and buy GBTC because GBTC is trading at a 20% premium and 3IQ QBTC was at a 5% premium, I'm going, that trade does not work out well in the end. That's not the trade you make. You were going to sell a 20% premium and buy the one at 5. So if I'm trading at a 10% premium, Mike Novogratz is going to open up a Bitcoin fund in Canada and sell it at a 7% premium, right? So we've left the market has left the door open for Novogratz to come in and compete with us in Canada by doing that.
So you raised a good point there. So I know that QBTC was kind of a long time coming to market. Maybe you can share with us some of the regulatory hurdles you faced bringing this particular product to market, and if it is the product you wanted to bring to market, or if you had to make any sort of compromises in doing so.
Yeah. So, and I guess Brad knows this because he's listened to me ad nauseum on some of these things. But when we started this process in 2015. We were looking at doing a reverse takeover, something like an Ether Capital or a Hive, do a reverse takeover of another fund, have a vote, get rid of the gold and buy Bitcoin, and then we would have had a product listed 3 or 4 years ago. But we chose to go through the front door with the Ontario Securities Commission. There was a guy by the name of John Mountain, really good guy. And John goes, "Hey, I'm not sure if I understand Bitcoin, but we'd love to be the first in the world to list it on a major market." And I said, "Okay, rock and roll, let's go." So we wrote the prospectus, and this prospectus was good to go after about 3 or 4 iterations in April of 2017. And all of a sudden, the Ontario Securities Commission goes, "Hang on a second, we can't list that fund. Because we don't know if Bitcoin's, they said, you don't have the proper regulation." I said, "What do you mean I don't have the proper regulation?" He says, "Well, we're not sure if Bitcoin's a currency, a commodity, or a security." I said, "I don't care what you call it. I'm licensed to trade commodities, currencies, and securities." Like, it didn't matter. The OSC took a year to study the ins and outs of digital assets. and then put terms and conditions on our registration as a money manager to restrict us on what we could and could not do. Meanwhile, the Americans like Pantera and everybody are coming into Canada, doing road shows, taking all the institutional money that were early adopters and some of their Bitcoin funds, and Canada was left out in the cold. So now we have this massive run up in 2017, and then the market collapses January to March 2018, and then they say, okay, you're good to go now. You can launch your fund. You go, yay, great. So anyways, we file it again in 2018, and we're ready to take it to market with John Mountain as our guy. And John Mountain gets a disastrous pancreatic cancer, and he dies in like a 3-week period. So the guy sponsoring us at the OSC is now dead. So we have to now wait a couple months for the new guy to come in, and the new guys come in and they go, yeah, we don't get this, so we're going to reject it. So the way it works is when a regulator rejects a fund such as ours, you're allowed to ask for full articulation of the reasons why. So they gave us all the big reasons, like, it's pricing or the custody. We can't get our head around the custody. We can't find a regulated custodian. You can't audit the fund. You can't audit Bitcoin. The price, it's subjective to market manipulation. It's volatile. You can't get a proper legal pricing for it. And then finally, they have this big stick that's called, it's not in the public interest. So anyways, so what we did is we challenged them. We took all of those and we went to Osler, and Sean Cumby did an amazing job with us. He worked hard with Osler to make sure that we could, I think there's something like 10,000 pages of testimony. And we went head to head with the OSC in a public hearing, basically a court hearing. And that was in the summer of 2019. And it wasn't until October of 2019, October 2019, that we actually got the go ahead. And the landmark victory that we made, the judge's statement was so powerful. It was the application that we made engaged the foundational concepts of securities legislation in Canada, meaning this fund had nothing to do about the merits of the Bitcoin fund, and it's not the role of regulators to approve or disapprove of the merit of the securities being offered. It's not up to the OSC to decide whether they like Bitcoin or not, or whether it goes up or goes down, or it's volatile or not. But they also said it's also out of the scope of regulators to immunize investors against loss, or it's not the job of regulators to ban speculation or risk-taking. So the judge gave the OSC a big slap on the wrist. So then we went back. We were told in October that they had to approve it. But Canada has 10 jurisdictions, actually 12 jurisdictions. So now we got approved in Ontario. We had to get approved in all the other 12. So that took until January. In January, then you have to build what's called a syndicate. So we had to now convince all the banks to be part of our syndicate, which they all rejected. They did not join the syndicate. So then Canaccord was leading a syndicate. We're going into March. We go, now what else could possibly go wrong? I had cancer. This other guy died of cancer. We had gone to court. We'd done all of this stuff. And we said, on our risk profile, we forgot to put, beware of the upcoming global pandemic. So we had a $100 million book, in my view at the time. And when the pandemic came, the book went to zero, literally to zero. Every order was completely pulled. But we also owned something. We bought an old Bitcoin fund from a bunch of guys out in Vancouver, which was called First Block. So we bought the First Block Bitcoin fund, and they're shareholders of 3IQ as well. And we rolled that $50 million Bitcoin fund into our fund and got it listed immediately right away. But it was only a $15 million offering. So then after the pandemic calmed down a bit, and then we had the halving, and that's when Brad and we were on Pomp's halving party, which is probably one of the most highlights of my Bitcoin career, was being on that halving party.
Tone Vase.
What's that?
Tone Vase's show, yeah.
Yeah, Tom Vase's show. Yeah. So it was so much fun. There were so many people there and people I've met and spoken to. So everybody heard about QBTC and they came there and they said, open up again. And we did 50 million in that offering. But the problem is within the period of the offering, Bitcoin went up 15%.
Yeah.
So that big an offering, we couldn't get that Bitcoin invested quick. So the way the regulators had it structured is you had 4 days in between when you raised the money and when you could actually deploy it, which, with Bitcoin going up 15%, the fund took a 7% hit on that day. So then we raised another 15. So now what we have is we have what's called a base shelf prospectus. So 3IQ can now issue shares in the Bitcoin fund overnight every day. And we're about to have something that's called an at-the-market offering. So the fund itself can make the market in its fund. So if a mutual fund comes to me and they say, the Bitcoin fund is trading at NAV plus 3% right now at $20.50. We'd like $40 million, and the fund can issue them $40 million at the market price. So all of that has to come in the context of having a properly valued fund. We can properly value the fund from the net asset value basis, but we have no control on how to properly manage it on the buyers and sellers, right? Like who buys it on the market.
Can I ask what happened earlier last week when trading got halted suddenly midday?
Yeah, so it wasn't. So when we did the overnight offering, so we're trying to get this better and tighter to make sure that it all works properly. So what happened that day is we announced on Monday we were doing a $50 million overnight offering, a bought deal by Canaccord. Okay, we priced it at 9 o'clock in the morning. We put the press release out. When you put the press release out, if the market starts trading, they halt the stock for dissemination of the press release. And that's what they had to do. The press release did not make it out at 9:30 before the market. So it came out at 10. So they halted it for an hour. And that was just so the news gets out. Because anything that trades publicly has to have equal information for everybody.
Right. Okay. Brad, I don't think I've let you get a word in edgewise. I've got a few other things, but I'll let you talk if you got anything to say.
No, just I think most people don't really get the concept of funds and regulated funds and even paper gold ETFs versus physically owning gold. So the one thing that I always tell people when they're talking about QBTC, or sorry, when I'm talking to them about Bitcoin, is like there's a certain situation if somebody's in that it's more beneficial for them to start getting some QBTC in their RRSP or the tax-free savings account. But like Fred, I wonder what your advice is to people when they're learning about Bitcoin. Like, what do you tell people when someone's coming to you saying, "Oh, I hear you run 3IQ. Like, what should I do? Should I buy some Bitcoin or should I get some QBTC? What should I do?" What do you tell them? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I obviously own Bitcoin, and now the CRA that's watching this is going to audit me in the next April. But like in the US, this year's tax return is going to have supposedly a little box that'll say right on the first page, did you transact in any digital assets, buy, sell, or make a digital asset transaction in 2020? And if you check that box, chances are you may get audited. So, and you can't lie on your tax return. So you're going to check the box, but it's going to be a bit of a shock to people, but that doesn't mean that's not a good way to own it. So yes, I have, accounts at pretty much every exchange and in Canada to support the infrastructure in Canada. But I also have my ledger and everything else. So I'm happy to go through all the discussions with everybody, but everybody in Canada mostly has a brokerage account or an account at Wealthsimple or Questrade, but Wealthsimple will allow you to buy Bitcoin, but I'm not sure that the Wealthsimple Bitcoin is eligible for a TFSA. It has to be a structured product like ours. So Wealthsimple, we have a lot of clients from Wealthsimple and Questrade and all the discount brokers. Our big ones are TD and RBC and CIBC and BMO discount brokerages. So people, the easiest way to do it is, therefore, your broker takes care of your brokerage firm, and your brokerage statement takes care of what's the capital gain, what's the loss. But again, 90% of the unit holders are under 40, and most people under 40, their first savings are in their TFSA and in their RSP. And I wish all of mine was in the TFSA because I'm looking at a lot of tax-free money right now. Right?
I want to give my 2 cents there. So a lot of people have been asking me this online, like, put it in your RRSP or TFSA, and it's like, well, if you really think Bitcoin is going to moon, you don't want to put in your RRSP because those are pre-tax dollars, and when you finally take them out at retirement, it's going to raise your income bracket so high that your taxes are going to be higher than what you pay right now. So if you have, max out your TFSA first before you even think about RRSPs, because those are after-tax dollars, and you're not paying any penalties on the gains you're making. But with an RRSP, you're on the hook for that. And if you think that Bitcoin's going to go up really high, when you go to take it out, that's going to raise your taxable income.
Well, with your TFSA, especially for young people, and again, we're not doing this to construe this is investment advice. This is just information. Please contact your advisor or a better website for proper information. But that's the disclaimer, because I know my compliance officer will be watching this. But Mike, you're exactly right. First of all, though, at $4,000 or $5,000 a year, your tax-free savings account, how much do people really have in there, right?
I think at this point, since it's been brought in, it's about a $70,000 or so.
60 to 70, again, depending on how old you are, because you can only start at 18, right?
Right.
But most people will max out their RSPs to get the tax deduction from there. And again, you're absolutely right. But if you do this well, by the time you're 75, your RSPs, the biggest RSPs in the world are worth, in Canada, are worth in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars from people putting junior mines or something in them that have absolutely skyrocketed, And there are all kinds of folklore, stories that we've learned about. But the Bre-X RSPs didn't do so good, but the other ones will. But I agree with you, Mike. If we've got Moon in our price target, it's got to be in your TFSA. And the TFSA, you can take money out. You can sell your Bitcoin. You can take it out, buy your house, and then put it back in. You get the back in.
Get that room back the next calendar year,
Exactly. So if you had started if you would put 60 in 4 months ago with us, you're already at 120. You can pull out 60, put your down payment on your house, and then when you want to, you can put that 60 back in there.
Well, Joey Deker says, thanks, dude. I'm up 2x in QBTC already. So it looks like that's someone that was doing that already and is up 2x in tax-free gains, hopefully. The average Canadian is like, making $45,000 annual salary. So for them to even fill up their RRSP, it doesn't really provide them a ton of immediate benefits. But if you, like you guys said, if you haven't yet maxed out your tax-free savings account, it makes more sense with the tax-free savings account for the average person.
If you think if your thesis is that Bitcoin is going to moon, and that's the reason you're investing in the first place, start with your TFSA, right?
The one thing, one good strategy though that I've heard from on Twitter was Mike or Greg Foss. I think it's Greg Foss. He's a 3IQ shareholder as well, and he's been talking about this strategy to get the government to subsidize your Bitcoin buy. So if you're making say 100K for the year, and you're in the max tax bracket, his advice was, take $10,000, put it into 3IQ's QBTC, and then you're lowering your tax bracket because you're paying 50% taxes at that point, and the government is subsidizing your purchase of Bitcoin.
You're kicking the can down the road, though, really, because once you retire, I mean, you have like a time horizon. Once you retire, like how long are you going to live? You got to take a bit out every year out of your RRSPs, and if Bitcoin is really mooned, your tax bracket could be very well be higher than it is today. Right. So your tax burden could be higher.
But if you're like, say, a teacher or somebody that's been working for 10 years or whatever, and you're making $90,000, $100,000 or something like whatever the teachers are making these days, I think some teachers are making pretty, but whatever, public workers, just anybody making a good salary, it's not a good idea to rely on your pension for your retirement. So I think it's a good piece of advice to also get some RRSPs and long-term investments going for anybody that's working and relying on a public pension. Because the real whole reason why we're in this Bitcoin thing is, most of us, is because we don't believe that the current system is going to be sustainable. And, there's a massive shortfall for funding of all the public pensions and even a lot of private pensions. And if you don't think about your retirement, you could be left in 20 years screwed. So your income could be zero. So, I mean, I think it's a good backup plan to have some QBTC in your RRSP.
All I'm saying is max out your TFSA first, and then worry about your RRSPs.
Yeah, you're very right, Mike. The Canada, and it's too bad Canada scaled it back. I don't know if you guys remember when TFAs first started, it was like 2,500, then 4,000, then 5,000, then 6, and there was a target to go all the way up to 10 or 15,000 per year in TFSA contributions. And the government they scaled it all the way back because everybody was doing it.
Yeah, I wonder with this whole pandemic if they're going to end it, or like what is the future of the TFSA at this point?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think they can take this away. It's just too important. And again, those of us putting $5,000, isn't where the government makes all their money from, right? I am concerned. I share the same concerns with all of you. I think the thesis that we had about Bitcoin 5 years ago is even so much more powerful today. I usually tell the story about me sending money to my son in the United States for school, and we'd always send. I started sending him Bitcoin because his allowance was $200 a month, and he'd only get 160 because CIBC would take 25 and Bank of America would take 15. He goes, "Well, what are we going to do about this?" So I told him to open up a Bitcoin wallet at Coinbase. And so the first month I sent him $200 and it goes bang, and he goes, "Wow, that was fast." So then the next month I only sent him 190. I only sent him 0.9 of a Bitcoin. He goes, "Hey, how come you only sent me 0.9? I said, "Well, the price of Bitcoin went up." He says, "No, that's not how it works." I go, "Yeah, that's exactly how it works." Anyways, he came home at Christmas. He's got all this Bitcoin in his phone, in his wallet. And I say, "Well, what are you living off of?" He says, "All that fiat currency in my savings account that is devaluing as we speak." And I go, "There's my boy."
So, leading up to this interview, I solicited a few questions from users on Twitter who are invested or interested in investing in QBTC. So I was thinking I'm just going to read them verbatim here and allow you to respond, Fred. Okay, so the past fund reopenings have resulted in diluting the BTC per unit. What is the fund doing to avoid diluting the BTC per unit for the current unit holders when reopening the fund?
Yeah, so every time we reopen the fund, we strive to make sure it's not dilutive in units per Bitcoin. So the one that we did last week that closes tomorrow, that'll show up tomorrow, the actual Bitcoin per unit will have gone up. So out of the 5 offerings that we've done, it's gone down 3 times and it's gone up twice. We will be the quicker the processes with the regulators, with the TSX, with the underwriters, the quicker that process gets, we can buy $50 million of Bitcoin in 6 minutes, right? I mean, that's not the issue, and we can be hedged. The fund is now big enough to hedge any offerings that we do, and so we have to hedge. We have to do it right away to get better. Now, when we do our at the market offerings that'll start in December, those will be let's say there's a 7% premium and there's a $40 million offer that goes through. Okay. Out of that 7%, 5 of it probably goes to current unit holders of the fund. So now the current unit holders, their Bitcoin per share are going to start skyrocketing and growing as the fund gets bigger and starts to become accretive. So there's so many things that are so exciting about the at the market offering that we're going to be able to do, that all of these guys that are skeptical on one trade here, and there are a lot of really smart people following this very closely. Okay, they'll see that all of a sudden, holy smokes, the Bitcoin per unit starting to increase. That ATM must be kicking in, and it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Sorry, this at the market offering, is this separate from QBTC?
It's an at the market offering of QBTC.
Oh, okay.
So in the stock market, we have something that's called at the market on close. So if the shares are trading at $20.50 at the market on close, somebody can come in and go, I want 30 million at the market on close. And if 2050 is a 4% premium, a big chunk of that premium goes into the fund to benefit current unit holders, which it buys more Bitcoin for everybody. Okay. So they just have to be a little patient. They have to understand this has never been done in the context of what we're doing. We're trying our best to get it there. All I can tell you, as I said, if you go back for the last 3 months, we're what? We're, 20 basis points away from the actual price of Bitcoin, which has been a great deal. So,
like, what kind of a dilution was there? How much percentage-wise of Bitcoin holdings per share was it? Like 5% dilution, 2%, 30%? Like, what was the?
Yeah, no. So it's tiny. I'll tell you. So I'll give you an example. And I have it. I just have it all here. Bitcoin per share. Okay, Bitcoin per unit was 0.001123. Okay, then it went to 0.11507. Then it went to 11300, and now it's 11154 or 56. So it's in the tenths of a percent dilution. Okay. People remember on Twitter, thinking dilution means the compaction of the premium. So on November 17th, our premium was 35%. On November 4th, 35%, and it fell to 7%, right? So they're saying, it diluted. No, the premium compressed. It didn't dilute.
The premium is different than the Bitcoin per share. So I guess the guy that Mike read the question from, it only went down 2.2%. The Bitcoin per share, based on those numbers you read out, Fred, it went down 2.2% from the beginning. And you're saying that over time it'll probably go even higher, like it'll be up.
Exactly. So if you like, I've got on my chart here, I've obviously got the Bitcoin per share every day since inception. So there's sometimes where it goes bigger, sometimes where it goes lower. So here's an example. We did the issue at, I'm just going to pick a number here, 2050, let's say last week, right? When Bitcoin at that time was 18,750, just for the sake of picking numbers, okay? If I buy my Bitcoin at 18,700, okay, it's accretive to the fund. If I buy my Bitcoin at 18,900, it takes away from the amount that we've offered at the price. So we have to trade it as sharply and as well as we can so it's not dilutive. It just happens to be that every time we've done an offering, Bitcoin is skyrocketed.
So what discretion do you have in terms of buying Bitcoin? Like, can you just try and buy the dips, or how does that work exactly?
Yeah, so I've been in the business a long time. We're trying to reduce the risk of what we're trying to do. So we want to hedge. If we're going to do an offering at Bitcoin at 18,500, I need to get as close as I can to 18,500, either through hedging, through our OTC desk trading, through any number of ways, futures markets. I've got to try and make sure that that's as close as I can get to. But you saw what happened this week. I mean, this week, Bitcoin went from 18.2 to 19.4, okay, and then down to 17, right? When we saw it down to 17, we were going, dude, if we had just held on and bought it.
So you are actively trading, like you are.
We're buying it when the money comes in, like as soon as it comes in.
Wait, you're buying it when the money comes in, or you're actively trading?
No, we don't actively trade it. We actively buy it when
you're not trying to hold back and buy a dip or anything like that.
No, because again, most of the time, the buyers are coming in when Bitcoin's on a run on the way up, right?
Right.
Very few times do we have people coming to us say we want $20 million because the price of Bitcoin is collapsing. So,
right.
So we will, again, if we issue shares at 18,800 and I got to pay 19,400, it's going to be a little dilutive to the current unit holders. And again, it goes the other way as well. What we're saying is now with our hedging capabilities, we can really take this down to the finest tune. And the one we did last week will be accretive. But with the at the market, it should be accretive and should continue to go up again.
Okay. Mike, do you mind if I ask a question here?
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay, so someone said here, hey, Sully, I came from Twitter. This is what Sully says. Is the tax-free trading only in Canada or also Europe? And is it done in a retirement account or normal? So that's a question I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, so whatever country they are in Europe, okay. Now we are listed in Gibraltar, and we are filing for an application to list in Dubai, and then look for our fund to go to places like Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Switzerland, London, and ultimately New York. So we want our Bitcoin fund to trade 24 hours a day. If their retirement account, and let's say the guy was calling from Switzerland, if the retirement account regime in Switzerland, of which I do not know anything about, if they allow you to buy Canadian stocks that are listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange because it's regulated, the answer is yes, it should be available for their retirement accounts. Now, Canada, you cannot put GBTC in a retirement account because it's not on a regulated exchange and it's not a regulated product as such. There is no prospectus. They do not publish their expense ratios. They do not publish a lot of stuff, behind the scenes on GBTC because they're not prospectus and they're not required to. So we know that you can put our fund in retirement accounts in the US and in Canada, but we don't, you can't put them in Canada, US ones in Canada.
And this is kind of another follow-up. Someone else was asking, like, how many Bitcoin are currently under management in the QBTC fund?
Not including the 60 million we bought last week. There's some so November 23rd, there was 13,771 Bitcoin. So that equates to about $253 million US. So today it would be over $300 million US. Yeah, 400 million Canadian. 400 million, Brad. We're on our way, buddy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess that helps that Bitcoin price has gone almost 3x since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, this is so funny for a money manager. It still went up too fast. It's like I always tell everybody, you know what? When it comes to dollar cost averaging, we're the only ones that actually want to keep the price low. We don't mind if you give us all the returns, like 3 years from now. On the next halving, we'll bump from 20 to 50. But let's just hang around 20 here for a while so we can all save our money and put it in the account.
So how do you custody the Bitcoin?
It's all at Gemini,
Okay.
Storage at Gemini. We use all the same banks, Silvergate Bank. Most of our trading's done at, the big OTC desks, which include Genesis. We have such a great network of people, wanting the stuff that we're doing. And again, my battles right now are with Canadian regulators to allow me to use Canadian infrastructure. I cannot use a Canadian exchange. I cannot custody in Canada. I cannot use a Canadian trading desk. And we're going like, what's this? And then, it didn't make any sense. So it's very frustrating, but we need to get this Toronto crypto network. I got $300 million here. Let's keep this in Canada, and let's promote our jobs, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So I've got a couple more from the mailbag. Will you keep performing offerings to compress the premium on the units?
We do offerings not to compress the premium on the units. We do offerings because we have significant institutional demand that will pay a certain price for it. And that price right now is somewhere around NAV plus 5, which is a very reasonable premium for a Canadian to pay. But if, an institution is not going to buy on the market and pay a 15% premium, we do not want a 15% premium on this fund. If you want to buy a fund with a 20% premium, go buy QBTC. But you don't want to pay 20% more for your Bitcoin.
Right.
Yeah. So,
can we have more accounting transparency on how the 1.95% management fee is taken from the fund?
Yeah. So it's taken from it's accrued daily of 1.195% divided by 365. It comes out every day. So when I take a look at any kind of given day, Bitcoin was up, was down 1.34%. I was down 1.36%. Bitcoin was up, 3.84%. I was up 3.81%. It's a tenth of a cent a day or something. So.
Okay. Where do you think the price of Bitcoin and by extension QBTC is going in the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
I just told you I'd like to see it at 20 still.
Yeah.
What was shocking was that Citigroup study that said we're going to have $335,000 price Bitcoin.
So that was a Citigroup analyst. I think they clarified that it wasn't technically Citigroup. It was like some guy working there.
Well, it's like Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. All these guys will not allow their advisors to buy Bitcoin, like Royal Bank or Bank of Nova Scotia. Bank of Nova Scotia will not allow you to buy QBTC. The stock symbol is blocked. Yet they've got probably one of the largest blockchain development groups, on King Street in that brand new fancy building. So there's still dislocation in Canada that we
What is the reasoning there? It's trading on the TSX. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah,
I'm on TD and I had no problem getting QBTC.
No, but they're not part of the syndicate yet. I think TD is one of the most progressives. Obviously, CIBC is. They just did another deal, and BMO backed them. But the reality is we are working very hard with them. There's a training course now, so investment advisors can actually take what's called a Know Your Product course. So they can take a KYP course to learn about Bitcoin, to be able to advise their clients properly on Bitcoin. I must do 10 webinars a week, 15, 20 webinars a week to offices, branch managers, investment advisors. And I really break down Bitcoin to probably one of its simplest things, Mike. And I'm going to leave you on this because I do have a 9. But I equate Bitcoin to email. Okay. Email is unsecured movement of information. Bitcoin is secure movement of ownership, value, title, or money. Okay, that's the secure value transfer protocol. The internet is nothing more than internet protocols, okay? Computer protocols, from voice over internet protocol, all these protocols. But imagine if when email was invented, they said, you can use our internet, you can use SMTP, our simple mail transfer protocol, to send an email to somebody, but it's going to cost you 1/10,000th of a dollar, okay? How rich is the guy who was collecting that 1/10,000th of a dollar since 1982 on every email ever sent? $1 gazillion, right? Well, to put a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is secure movement of value, ownership, title, or money, you're going to have to pay 1/10,000th of the value of the transaction in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has a use case more powerful than anything that's ever been invented. And that's where I leave people and they go, you got to be kidding. I said, no. That's what it is. You're paying to put a secure transaction on the internet. And all money's going digital and people can be in denial. And we'll do another one with stable coins, and they should all be on the Lightning Network. On the Liquid Network. It's part of the Bitcoin blockchain, but we can talk about that later. So
thanks, Fred.
I got another minute, but
thank you for talking to us, Fred. It's been very illuminating.
Well, it's my pleasure, Mike, and I
want to do another one.
Yeah, I want everybody to know what we're here to do. You know, we're trying to bring Bitcoin to the masses in a tax-free, a nice savings way, not just for Canadians. We're going to take this around the world. Canada's going to be known for having the biggest, most powerful Bitcoin fund in the world, and that's what we're here to do. So thanks very much for your support, both of you.
Thank you.
It's been great talking to you. Thanks.
See you later, Fred. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right, Mike.
I got my questions answered. You know, I was struggling with the Nav Premium, and he answered a lot of the a lot about it there. So I'm an investor. It's I got in at a pretty low Nav Premium, which is nice, around 2%. So when I see it ballooning up to 30%, it kind of racks my brain a bit, because I don't want I just want exposure to Bitcoin, right? But I mean, the Nav Premium helps when it goes up because that's better for me. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'd really just like to put Bitcoin in my TFSA. That's the ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was looking at this, I've been thinking for a long time, like, oh man, I wish I could just put Bitcoin in my TFSA. Why won't they let me put GBTC in there? So when I heard about this, I think it was somebody in that Telegram, the Canadian Bitcoin Telegram group or whatever. It was just like, hey, did you guys hear that these guys won against the OSC? They won their fight. And I was like, what? I did not expect that was going to happen. I didn't expect that 3IQ was going to win the fight against the Ontario Securities Commission because of all the problems all the U.S. funds had for years and years and years. So, yeah, it is a big deal. I don't fully understand how big of a deal it is, but a lot of the traditional finance people seem to think, oh, it's a pretty big deal. Something I wish we got to ask him about, but he ran out of time. I wanted to know what his thoughts were on the other one, because there was another one that just opened up recently, right? And all the banks were kind of involved.
Yeah, the name escapes me. What is it called again? I forget.
Maybe someone in the chat can post it. But
anyways, I mean, it's been great, Brad. I hope it recorded on your end and we can post this or something. Great discussion.
Yeah, there was another question or two in here. I might, if you got to drop off, I might.
I'm good. I'm good for a few more minutes.
I don't know. Maybe this guy says, so explain Bitcoin. Is it like a stock? I don't know if we should bother with that one. Maybe the guy's not even here anymore.
Well, Craig Wright.
Yeah, exactly. So this person's saying it's a ice
Galaxy. That's
Galaxy
it. That's it. Galaxy.
Yeah, the CIBC or something was involved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what I really want is I just want something that's bare exposure to Bitcoin in a tax-free savings account. Like, as close to that as you can get is the ideal. This Nav Premium, you know, it's almost more volatile than Bitcoin itself, and that's what concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say that for people who are going to put it in, you're doing this for a long-term investment, and the premium should just sort itself out. It sucks to buy at a 30% premium.
Right.
So I don't know if that's really worth it, because you are going to save that 25% capital gains tax. So
2% is better than 30%, though.
Yeah, it's much better lower.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know if I would be recommending people to be buying it when it's 30% premium.
But Grayscale, I mean, it's typically around that. Isn't it around 20 or 30%?
Grayscale's got a really high premium, and Grayscale's other products, the Ethereum Trust was up like 400% premium or something.
The premium, as long as it's like stable, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're buying it at 30%, you're selling at 30%. The problem is when it goes from 30% to 2%. That's the problem.
Yeah, and like he said, it's I guess it's all to do with the liquidity and the amount of shares that are traded, and it's people. Once people kind of get tuned into this, and I guess Bay Street traders start to realize there's a premium to buy and sell, then maybe that spread will get arbitraged down, because it's not like GBTC where they kind of are aiming for a premium, because they can't do those overnight offerings like Fred was talking about. Like GBTC does like once every 6 months, I think they can do an offering. So the premium makes, I mean, it makes the conditions that they have make it that there's more likely to always be a premium. But with QBTC, there's more likely that once it gets to more volume, I mean, the volume now is pretty big, so the premium should be down.
Yeah,
it's a bull market, so
yeah. On Friday, I think it was around 3 or 4%.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah. So
John says last week the premium was 5 to 7 pretty consistently. That's not bad. I mean, that's cheaper than getting Bitcoin at a Bitcoin ATM, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the only other thing that I was kind of frustrated with about the 3IQ, because when I heard about it and I invested in the company, I was like, I don't know what I'm investing in really that much. I just want to support a Bitcoin fund. I want to support Canadians getting Bitcoin in their tax-free savings account. And I made
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, because I've been looking for this product for so long. Thank you.
But I got frustrated when they came out with the Ethereum trust, and they're saying we're going to start launching this Ethereum product.
It's the way of the world. It's Bitcoin and Ethereum now. Come on, Brad. You got to get over it. I know you get triggered by these things, but
yeah. I hope that it doesn't blow up on QBTC or on 3IQ.
How would it blow up? I mean, the Bitcoin is custodied with Gemini.
Oh, and that's the Ethereum one.
The Ethereum. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like if Ethereum, I really don't think Ethereum is going to be here in 10 years. So, I mean, what's going to happen when Ethereum blows up and then they've got all this money in this Ethereum trust? That's the way I'm thinking about it. Bitcoin is like, Bitcoin's competing with gold and dollars. It's going to be here for as long as the blocks keep getting produced. Ethereum has to switch over to like proof of stake, and there's going to be all this really complicated stuff that has to happen. There's like forks. There's like the Chinese miners want to stay on proof of work, and like there's like a lot of contention there. So it just, to me, seems like, why add in all that risk? But I guess the other side of that is, they're capitalists and they're trying to make money for the company and the shareholders, and there's a ton of demand from dumb money that want to buy Ethereum, so they're just providing them some.
It's priced less than Bitcoin, so the investor who knows nothing about crypto, they're going to say, wow, Bitcoin at 18, 20,000, and then you got Ethereum at $700 or whatever it's at. It's just, what do they call that? Where it's
bias.
Unit bias, yes. That's why we need to start pricing everything in sats, right?
Yeah, man, I did a podcast episode the other day with Preston Pish. I think I mentioned that to you.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that one to come out. It was so good. I got to re-listen to it. I was fired up for like 2 days after that. I didn't say a single mean thing about Ethereum. I wasn't being negative at all. And then like as the hype of the energy of like Preston's conversation went away, I started like seeing tweets that triggered me, and I unfollowed. Like,
you're going to be filthy rich from Bitcoin. Just focus on that. Don't worry about like others getting rich off Ethereum. You don't have to get triggered off that. You're fine with Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin is. I mean, I'm wearing my EOS shirt here as a joke. But this is
Bitcoin.
what I
see the true Bitcoin maximalist here.
I got my dexahedron or whatever the hell this thing is called.
Yeah,
the heart thing. But yeah, I hope. I hope they succeed with the Bitcoin trust, and I do recommend that people. The average people that don't use their TFSA now. Before I was like, why would you even bother throwing money in a scam stock market like thing with the TFSA? Like, just buy Bitcoin. But now it's like you can take advantage of the system and get
Yeah.
tax-free gains on Bitcoin. No, it's not real Bitcoin. Yes, you should have real Bitcoin. This should, like the QBTC ticker in their TFSA shouldn't be your only Bitcoin. It's just a one way for you to get a way to game the system
Yep.
and get tax-free exposure to the price of Bitcoin. So like everybody should do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably end it there. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you want to follow Mike on Twitter, it's at Mike in Space. And you said you have a new podcast?
Yeah, it's anchor.fm/Great Minds. That's where you'll find it. It's called the Great Minds Podcast.
All right. And if this is going to go up on your podcast, then maybe I'll tell people they can follow me at Brad Mills Can on Twitter, and the podcast is called Magic Internet Money on the Google. So, thanks again for the chat, Mike.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks for doing all the tech stuff around this.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go decorate the Christmas tree.
Nice.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Brad.
Merry Christmas to all the people out there.
Later.